The success of Mega Man 2 all but guaranteed a sequel, which began development after that game's release. Akira Kitamura, director of the first two games, unfortunately had left Capcom at this point to start his own company, leaving supervising duties to Masahiko Kurokawa, who worked on games such as Strider and Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. He and Inafune did not see eye to eye during the third game's development. According to Inafune, Kurokawa, quote, did not really understand Mega Man the way his predecessor did. This clash of styles would eventually lead to Kurokawa quitting the project, leaving Inafune to take over development duties. The last 2 months before the game's release was filled with development crunch time, involving Inafune assigning and dividing tasks among team members who weren't meeting deadlines. Inafune said, had they been given more time to polish, they would make a better game. But Capcom wanted that sequel to one of their biggest games ever at the time out ASAP, and they had to oblige. On September 28, 1990, the game was released in Japan, with North America getting it the following November. Despite Inafune considering it his least favorite game due to its unpolished nature, overall, reviews of the game were generally positive, with critics saying it's the pinnacle of NES effort and a major improvement over both Mega Man's 1 and 2. Some critics would point out things like the game's difficulty, there's only one this time, and sprite flickering when there are too many objects on screen, probably due to limitations and the incomplete nature of the game. So let's look at this game and see if I still enjoy it today. Well, at last, we have arrived at the game that got me into the franchise. Like everyone else back in the day, our household had an NES. I don't exactly remember what drew me to Mega Man 3 in the first place. Maybe it's because the box art had a robot fighting another robot. Having grown up with a family that watched a lot of sci-fi, naturally I developed a love for the genre. And that's probably the reason my parents got this game in the first place. Anyway, the box cover. They're finally starting to make Mega Man look more like Mega Man. Although it's a case of the classic trope, American Kirby is hardcore, as he looks like he's been hitting the gym. With him are 3 characters that made their debut in this game. There's Sparkman that seems to be getting hit in a most uncomfortable place. Behind them is a green colored Top Man, and next to him is a red robot dog. We'll get to him in a bit. When you start the game, you're immediately taken to the title screen, just like in the first game. Yeah, we don't have a story intro here, so let's see what the manual has for us this time. Calling Mega Man! Calling Mega Man! Come in, please! Mega Man, we need you. We're down to the wire on our peacekeeping project. We've got to get those last energy crystals or we can't finish it. Dr. Wily is here now too. Yes, he's finally found his sanity. He knows where the crystals are. They're in the mining worlds, but we can't get to them. The robots are running amok and they're destroying everything. You've got to get there, Mega Man, and get those crystals. You'll have to face some pretty mean metal. Expect the worst. Is Rush with you? Give him a bolt to chew on and tell him it's from us. What's that? We must be getting static? Sounds like you said wolf. Mega Man, get to those mining worlds pronto. Grab the crystals and stop whoever's in charge. He's one lunatic guy. This is Dr. Light, over and out. Yeah, it's more or less the plot. Let's clarify it a bit. Dr. Wily claims he's changed his ways. I guess getting defeated twice finally humbled him, and he and Dr. Light are now teaming up to build a giant peacekeeping robot named Gamma. To power this thing, they need 8 elements from a number of uncharted planets, and they co-created 8 robot masters to carry out this task. Actually, they created 7 robot masters. I'll explain why in a bit. However, the robot masters have gone a bit haywire, and once again, it's up to Mega Man to stop them and get the elements for Gamma. A new addition to his existing gameplay is the ability to slide. By pressing the down and jump buttons together, Mega Man will slide in whatever direction he's facing. I like it because it gives Mega Man some additional mobility, especially against enemies and bosses. Also new to this game is Mega Man has some help this time. That red dog on the box art? Yep, that's his, if you can't tell by the helmet. And like the story says, his name is Rush. Now based on the series' musical naming motif, you'd think he was named after the Canadian rock band Rush. As of this writing, I cannot find anything to either support or deny this claim. Regardless of his naming origins, Rush serves as Mega Man's support unit, taking the place of the items from the previous game. Rush's first mode is Rush Coil. Mega Man hops on Rush, and the spring on his back will allow him to leap to higher areas. This is available from the start. Like the previous game's items, you have to earn 2 more by beating certain robot masters. First, there's Rush Jet. Well, it's not really a jet, rather, it's more of a moving platform. I love it. Just look at me moving all sorts of different directions. Too bad it's only fun in this game. Rush's third and final mode is Rush Marine. It's okay for the few underwater sections this game has, but in my opinion, it's not worth using, especially since you can use Rush Jet underwater. However, it can be useful if you want to save on Rush Jet energy, and it is amusing to see this mode hopping on land. Mega Man will need every advantage he can get because in addition to stopping the 8 robot masters, he'll have to contend with a mysterious new robot. For now, let's call him Breakman. In certain levels, Breakman will appear, and with the exception of this level where he helps you progress through a level, he'll attack Mega Man. As a nice little touch, he would announce his arrival by whistling a little tune. Burn this little ditty into your brain. But the question is he friend or is he foe? In the stages you have to fight him in, he goes back and forth across the room, hopping and shooting at our hero. And it is possible you can die to him. Thankfully, depending on the room layout, the new slide ability can help Mega Man avoid his attacks, and after enough hits, Breakman teleports away. From what I've read, this is all to test Mega Man. I don't know why, since Mega Man at this point has already beaten 2 sets of Robot Masters and is about to face the third. Since it's the same old routine from the previous games, let's go ahead and deal with them and get those elements for Gamma. Before getting started, let's go to the password section, which is now accessible on the title screen. Put a red dot in coordinates A6. Yes, as you can see, this game utilizes blue dots for passwords in addition to the red. Anyway, red dot in A6. Then start the game. While we still have to deal with the 8 Robot Masters, we can now do so with 9 E-Tanks at the start. That's right, this is the first Mega Man game that allows you to have a maximum of 9 E-Tanks. I'm glad because ever since they were introduced in the last game, E-Tanks for me are confidence boosters / safety nets. And you know what they say, the more the merrier. Sorry, wrong franchise. As you probably guessed based on the E-Tank reveal footage, my first Robot Master is Snake Man. His level goes all in on the snake aesthetic, especially with enemies such as Petite Snakey and Big Snakey actually being incorporated into the stage design. A reminder, Mega Man is traveling to alien planets for this outing. Makes you wonder why Snake Man would redesign his stage to better suit him. In the end, it's just a video game. The fight against Snake Man has him moving from one end of the room to the other while shooting his weapon. The room's structure means Mega Man cannot use a slide, so we have to rely on good old-fashioned jumping, or E-Tanks. Defeating Snake Man gives us Search Snake. It allows Mega Man to shoot up to 3 snakes along the ground and along the walls to attack enemies from afar. Think of it as a much better version of Bubble Lead. Oh, I almost forgot. The development team added this little animation of Mega Man actually getting the defeated Robot Master's weapon. Another thing I like. The first game had Mega Man getting this orb, which I assume is the Robot Master weapon, and in Mega Man 2, nothing. I mean, he got it, but there's no visual indication outside of the weapon get screen that he got the weapon. Here, we see Mega Man hop into the air, absorb the energy, and teleport away. Future games will have variations of this animation. Alright, back to this game. I'm going in weakness order this time, and the Robot Master weak to Search Snake is Gemini Man. His level definitely has an alien vibe, with its surface being crystal, and once Breakman opens up the next part of the level, there are these colorful crystal squares and a bunch of eggs you have to shoot to proceed, containing enemies called holes. Get it? Because they look like, never mind. I should note this one tricky water section prior to reaching Gemini Man. Not a problem with Rush Jet or Rush Marine, but since I don't have them yet, we gotta do some tricky platforming. But hey, there's an E-Tank on the end if you need it, so there's something. At the beginning of the Gemini Man fight, he creates a copy of himself, and both move around the room attacking Mega Man. Once Gemini Man's health is down to half, the copy disappears, and he'll resort to using his primary weapon, Gemini Laser. If I gave him the chance. Gemini laser. Cool concept, bad in execution. You fire a laser, but if it doesn't hit the target, it'll bounce around the room for a bit before disappearing. You cannot fire another shot during this, you cannot switch weapons, and then there's the game's slowdown. Don't use it unless you're at point blank range, or on the Robot Master it's vulnerable to. Needle Man. Another Robot Master that has no hands, and like Airman from the previous game, he has a face that's on his torso. The only remarkable thing about his level involved these stage obstacles called Needle Press that move up and down. Thankfully, they are not insta-kill. Navigating around these things requires a slide. In a case of the game telling you, Mega Man has this ability now, use it. The fight against Needle Man. Oh boy. Like I said, Gemini Laser is his weakness. However, the way he moves around, combined with the laser's issues I pointed out earlier, can make this a difficult fight. I got lucky here because I was shooting the lasers in a specific way, and Needleman ran into them like an idiot. You're better off using the Mega Buster. Needle Cannon allows Mega Man to shoot up to 3 needles in rapid succession. In addition, defeating Needleman also nets us Rush Jet. Alright, the Robot Master that's weak to Needle Cannon is Snake Man, whom we've already beaten. Yeah, this game actually has 2 weakness chains, and we just finished the first. So let's begin the next, longer chain with Top Man. His stage appears to have a weed problem. That is, it's a bit overgrown. What do you think I meant? Oh, and we have these encounters with these cat mini-bosses called Tamas. The reason Top Man makes a good first boss for the big weakness chain is his attack pattern is simple. He'll shoot tops that home in on Mega Man, but they can easily be dodged. Then he spins from one side of the room to the other, which you can easily jump over if you time it correctly. For beating him, we get Top Spin. You'd think it would be Mega Man shooting those tops, right? Well, you'd be wrong. It's the spinning ability. Don't get me wrong, from a visual standpoint, Top Spin is impressive, especially for an 8-bit game. However, if not timed correctly, there is a high chance that Mega Man will receive touch damage while using it. Since I have more faith with Mega Man's projectiles, with 2 exceptions, I will not be using this ability. One of those exceptions is that it is the weakness of our next Robot Master, Shadow Man. I like his level aesthetic, with the red water, and these light bulb enemies called holograms, appropriately named since they cast the illusions of space, blinding the player to the level layout. Luckily, you can easily destroy them. Shadow Man's backstory is very interesting. It's rumored that he's actually a robot of alien origin that Dr. Wily found and remade into a ninja-themed robot. In other words, he was not part of the Light Wily co-designed Robot Masters. The Archie Mega Man comic actually did something interesting with his extraterrestrial origins, but I'm getting too off topic. Shadow Man's fight can be hard as he moves fast, fires his weapon, and can even slide. If used correctly, Top Spin can take him out fast, but again at the risk of touch damage. Have E-Tanks ready just in case. The weapon's Shadow Blades allow Mega Man to fire stars in multiple directions. Basically, it's a weaker version of Metal Blades. Also, it's here that we get Rush Marine. Onward to our next Robot Master, Spark Man. Like Shadow Man, his stage is a nice visual treat. Okay, in reality, I like the aesthetics of all the stages in this game. It's just that I like some more than others. Here are a couple of stage highlights. You can use the NES 8-bit sprite glitches to your advantage. See these obstacles, the electric gabiolas? If you stand in such a way that'll make them disappear when you go off screen, they won't respawn. Anything to make the stage easier. Then there are these platforms where if you jump on them, they'll force you towards the insta-kill spikes on the ceiling. Yeah, no thanks. The only thing worth noting about Sparkman is he's yet another Robot Master with no hands. Just a couple of pointy ends to produce electricity. Spamming Shadow Blades will take him out quickly. Spark Shot can be used to stun some enemies, up to 2 at a time. Unfortunately, you're stuck in this mode while it's active, so it's only good if you want to get some distance between yourself and an enemy. And I meant it when I say it only works on some enemies. Really, you should just save it for our next Robot Master, Magnet Man. I see they're going all in with the magnet theme with enemies such as Magflies, and these fans that attract and repel Mega Man. and once again, we have to deal with those annoying appearing blocks. Or you can break out Rush Jet again and fly right past them. When battling Magnetman, he'll leap up into the air to fire magnets at Mega Man, and he'll try to attract Mega Man towards him. Some well-timed spark shocks should do him in. Magnet Missile is a homing projectile, targeting the nearest enemy on screen. Great for aerial enemies such as Shadow Man's Parasaiu. One more Robot Master to go. Hard Man. For the record, he's named that way due to his tough armor, okay? His stage has these annoying trap enemies called Wanons. Combine that with the equally annoying Hab-Su-Bi enemies, and I wouldn't be surprised if you have to use an E-Tank to survive the level. That's what they're there for. You may also need to use some for the Hard Man fight because if you're not good at dodging, this fight can be difficult. He'll shoot his fists at Mega Man, then try to body slam him. The impact is so powerful that it can stun Mega Man even while he's in the air. With Magnet Missile's help, you should be able to beat him. The weapon Hard Knuckle may be slow, but it's also very powerful, able to deal with the tough enemies like the large Bickies that tend to be near boss doors, and these variants of the Sniper Joe called the Hammer Joe. Instead of relying on a shield, keeping their vulnerable eye closed makes them invincible. They only open it as they're throwing their ball and chain, and it's your only chance to attack them. The Hard Knuckle is also used to destroy these destructible walls, similar to Crash Bomber of the previous game. Alright, all the Robot Masters are taken care of. Now it's, what's going on here? Why are the stage select screen corners filling up with identical looking shadowy robots all of a sudden? Well, it turns out we're not done yet. We have to revisit 4 stages and fight new bosses called Dock Robots. To be fair, I do like the visual touch of stages you cannot revisit during this portion. Yeah, the Dock Robot sections. You revisit Needle Man's, Gemini Man's, Spark Man's, and Shadow Man stages in order to fight 8 of these things. 2 per stage, 1 at the midsection, and 1 at the end. And each one would use a weapon from a Mega Man 2 Robot Master. In my youth, before discovering the other games, I did find it confusing that these different robots were going into the Dock Robots before the fight begins. Now, I understand it's a visual representation of which Mega Man 2 weapon a Dock Robot will use. It's almost as if the ghost of a Mega Man 2 Robot Master has returned for one final fight against our hero. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who made this observation. The thing is, unlike the original fights, the hitboxes are a bit wonky, in that some of the dodging strategies from the previous game won't work here. Another problem is, you're stuck using either the Mega Buster or this game's weapons against them. The latter method means memorizing who's weak to what all over again. Yeah, you cannot acquire the Mega Man 2 weapons after defeating a Dock Robot. Guess they don't want the likes of Metal Blades and Time Stopper overriding the current set. If you're wondering which Robot Masters are in which stage, and what their weaknesses are, here's a handy list. The stages themselves are essentially ROM hacks, with new layouts and hazards including insta-kill spikes. A lot of insta-kill spikes. It doesn't matter which order you tackle the revisits, Mega Man has all the tools he needs to get past whatever ridiculous challenges the stages present him with. I will say a couple nice things about these sections. I like the aesthetics of the revisited Shadow Man stage, and the wrecked look of both Spark Man's and Needle Man's stages. Also, in the revised Needle Man stage, we have these mini-bosses, the Giant Metals. They were actually foreshadowed in the original Needle Man stage, so props to the team for the setup. Despite these positives, overall, the Dock Robot stages are a waste of time. I get what the team were trying to do, make the sequel stand out from the previous game by doing something different like making it longer. They could have done it better, and to jump ahead a bit, they will in the next game. After the Dock Robot stages, we have one more fight with Breakman. If you think it's going to be an epic showdown, think again. It's the exact same fight as his previous encounters. This turns out to be a distraction because once we return to the lab, Light informs us that after getting the last element, Wily took off with Gamma. This whole time, Wily pretended to be reformed, all so he can get his hands on a giant peacekeeping robot to take over the world. And yeah, it's obvious he made the Robot Masters run amok. He did co-create them after all. Heck, we should have known Wily was the villain from the start. His new castle is right on the box art. Also, the dock robots using Mega Man 2 weaponry was a pretty big clue. So off he goes in the most detailed version of his flying saucer yet to said castle. Time to once again storm the place and stop him. I will say that the castle is generous when it comes to E-tanks, so don't be afraid to use some in these stages. You'll have multiple chances to replenish them. Our stage bosses this time consist of first, the Kamegoro Maker, a machine that makes these robotic turtles to target Mega Man. Just use Shadow Blades against the turtles, and eventually the Maker itself will explode. Next, we have the Yellow Devil Mark II. Unlike the one from the first game, this one's more tolerable. It takes a lot of damage from Hard Knuckle, you've got E-tanks this time, and there's the slide ability. Then we have Hologram Mega Man, consisting of 3 copies of our hero. 2 are fake, 1 is real. When you find the real one, quickly use Search Snake against it. I realized something as I was recording footage for this retrospective. The 3 bosses I just fought are retreads of the bosses from the first game. The Yellow Devil is pretty obvious, but then you have a fight against a copy Mega Man and multiple copies of an underwater boss. Coincidence or intentional? You decide. Anyway, the 4th stage has these annoying junk golems that, well, throw junk at you just before you reach the teleporter that'll take us straight into the boss rush section. Afterwards, it's the fight with Wily Machine 3. Hard Knuckle will take out the first stage of this thing, and for stage 2, I just stand on Rush Jet and blast away. So once again, we have thwarted the plans of Dr. Wily and a fake! Yeah, we got one more level to go through. It's nice that Wily has all these items for Mega Man to use. It's almost like he wants us to beat him. Well, now it's time to take on the giant robot that was originally built for peacekeeping purposes. I never understood why a giant robot has such a tiny head. It doesn't matter since after destroying it with Shadow Blade, Dr. Wily takes direct control. And I just noticed, this form kinda resembles Gutsman a bit. I shouldn't be surprised. So what weapon will take care of this thing once and for all? Some of you will already know this, but for those who don't, you're never going to believe it. Yep, top spin. Must be embarrassing for Wily that Mega Man twirled his way to victory. And for the 3rd time in a row, the final weapon against Wily has the color gray in it. Thankfully they change it up in future games. Once again, Wily's begging for mercy, but before Mega Man does anything, the castle starts collapsing, presumably due to the fight with Gamma. Breakman arrives to save Mega Man, but apparently it's too late for Dr. Wily. Mega Man is dropped off at Light's lab, and that's when Dr. Light hears the whistle. He recognizes it as the whistle of Proto Man. Then we get a scene of Mega Man out in the field, while the serial numbers of the Light Robot Masters scroll along the bottom. It serves to retroactively fit the original robots within the numbering system established in Mega Man 2, and it shows that, indeed, there was one robot built before Mega Man. His older brother, Breakman, aka Proto Man. We then have Mega Man look up at the sky with an image of Proto Man, and flying towards the tree is a bird that's oddly shaped like Wily's saucer. It's probably nothing. Now that the truth is out, let's quickly dive into Proto Man's backstory, since the game doesn't give us the details. Proto Man was the first of a new kind of robot built by Dr. Light that's self-aware. While he exceeded the Doctor's expectations in a number of ways, he was still a prototype. His energy core had a critical flaw that, if not corrected, would eventually cause Proto Man to shut down. Light was planning on doing this, but because Proto Man was too independent, he figured this correction might change who he is, so he ran away. Light presumed he died and moved on, having fixed the energy problem and built both Rock and Roll, and eventually the first set of Robot Masters. In reality, Proto Man was wandering the world until his energy was nearly depleted. He was then found by Dr. Wily, who fixed the power issue by replacing Light's solar core with a nuclear one. Though it's a temporary fix, Proto Man will one day lose power for good. Wily also made further modifications, turning him into a combat robot, while at the same time gaining a greater knowledge of how Light builds his robots. Wily also gave Proto Man his shield and his helmet. Indebted for saving his life, Proto Man would then serve Wily, which would explain his actions in Mega Man 3. Kinda. Originally in Japan, Proto Man's name was Blues, to better fit with the musical naming theme. And according to lore, not only was Proto Man the first kind of robot that would eventually lead to the Robot Masters, he was also the basis of the Sniper Joes, which he's not happy about. Neither are we, dude. Now, why the Brakeman alias? You've noticed that Proto Man has covered up his helmet for the final fight, right? Don't know why he did it there, instead of using it throughout all the encounters. There are unused sprites out there that feature the dramatic reveal of Brakeman to Proto Man, or vice versa, that I wish stayed in the game. But again, the rush production was probably responsible for the cut. The in-universe reason many believe Proto Man called himself Brakeman in this game is because he didn't want Dr. Light recognizing him due to them falling out on bad terms. Makes sense. Alright, back to the game's credits. Like the last one, we have a display of the Robot Masters, actually on screen this time, along with their serial numbers, and who actually came up with them, which is once again, the fans. Supplementary material in future games will point this out, but despite the lettering being different between who made the robots, DLN meaning Dr. Light number and DWN meaning Dr. Wily number, the series numbering overall is correct. We are up to 24 Robot Masters, if you include Mega Man and Roll. Well, technically 25 since Proto Man is 0. Though I don't think people would consider Roll a Robot Master. Mega Man and Proto Man after their transformations? Well, a strong maybe. So that was Mega Man 3. After all this time, it still holds up. Young me wasn't concerned about all the technical flaws and the story. I just wanted to play a game about a robot battling other robots and getting their powers. And it's thanks to this game that I learned that there are more games starring this character, and it snowballed from there. Going back to it these days, I still admire it for essentially being a very polished beta. The game never crashed for me, and I'm still marveled by some of the things they did considering it's an 8-bit game. The top spin animation of course, but then there's the stage select screen where Mega Man's eyes move alongside which stage is currently highlighted. However, seeing the screen tear above Shadow Man reminded me of the flaws this game has, due to it being forced out into the stores quickly. I agree that with more time, the game would have been much better. For example, expand the story just a little bit at the beginning. They could have done like they did in Mega Man 2 and with future games. Use text dialogue with the appropriate images. I would have accepted it. But one of the biggest examples of a rushed job, pardon the pun, is the intro music to Wily's Castle. It felt like there could have been more to it, and indeed, there is a longer version of the intro music out there. Here it is in case you're curious. The music itself isn't bad. There are some memorable tunes like Shadow Man Stage, Snake Man Stage, and the boss battles. Overall, it's pretty close to Mega Man 2 levels of quality, though at the same time, there's something holding it back. I could be wrong, but I think part of it was that they had to change composers during development. The original, Harumi Fugiti, had to leave due to giving birth, and Capcom composer Yusuke Fugiti having to complete the majority of the score. Even with all the good and bad going for it, I will happily play this game again, though I will take the advice of other people who have played the game. Play through the 8 Robot Masters, and use the passwords to skip the Doc Robot sections. The team tried really hard to get a playable version out for sale, and for the most part, they succeeded. and the game was successful enough that eventually we would get another sequel.